It started on a Thursday. Not that Thursdays mean anything in particular, but this one has a scar on it now. The kind you remember not because it hurt in the moment, but because everything after it did. I was supposed to be out of town for a supplier meeting, Grand Rapids, boring as always, but the client canceled last minute. I didn't even call her to tell her I was heading back early. No reason to, really. We hadn't been checking in on each other like that lately. We used to. But lately, silence had more rhythm than our conversations. Still, nothing that screamed disaster. Just life. Or so I told myself. The house was dark when I pulled into the driveway. It was barely 6:30. Usually she had lights on in the kitchen, a candle flickering on the island, the scent of something she tried from Pinterest burning slightly in the oven. But that day nothing. Just quiet, that deep, suspicious kind. I remember walking up to the door, hearing only the ticking of the old hallway clock through the front window. Not even the TV was on. That thing was always blabbering in the background. I stepped inside. Shoes gone. Her jacket gone. No car keys on the hook. At first I figured maybe she stepped out. Grocery run. Wine pickup. Something. I put my bag down, walked to the fridge, cracked open a beer, and that's when I saw it, the wine glass in the sink. Red lipstick on the rim. She doesn't wear red. Or so I thought. But that wasn't the strange part. The strange part was that the glass wasn't rinsed. She always rinsed her wine glasses. Obsessive about it. She used to get mad when I left the coffee pot soaking overnight. Mildew grows in that time, she once told me. But this, it was like someone had been in a hurry, like the act of cleaning it would have been too much trouble for the moment. I don't know what made me go upstairs. Maybe I expected to find a note. Or maybe some corner of me wanted to prove to myself that nothing was wrong. That it was just a wine glass and an off night. But what I found wasn't a note. It was her phone glowing on the bed. That in itself was strange. She never left her phone lying around. It was practically glued to her hand lately. Texting who? She said coworkers. Women from her book club. Her cousin. Always someone whose name I never saw. The screen lit up as I reached for it. A text preview from a number not saved. Can't wait to see you again. Last time wasn't nearly enough. I opened the thread. The first message was a photo. Not one of her face. Just a shot of her legs, tan, oiled, crossed on what looked like the hotel bed in the Marriott across town. The blue striped sheets gave it away. We stayed there once. Anniversary night, years ago. I scrolled. Messages. Voice notes. Dates. One voice note, 32 seconds long, had her whispering something I couldn't even bring myself to finish listening to. Not because it was obscene, it wasn't. But because I'd never heard her speak like that. Not to me. Not even when we were in our so-called golden years. Her tone was soft, breathy, like she was trying to crawl through the speaker into the man's ear. I sat down on the edge of the bed, not because I was overwhelmed or dizzy or crushed. Not yet. That came later. I sat down because something in me switched off. Something ancient. The version of me that would have shouted or cried or called a friend, that man evaporated in the time it took me to read. Don't forget 7 p.m. Be ready for me. I want to see you wearing that black thing again. You look dangerous in it. She had told me that dress was too tight when I bought it for her 2 Christmases ago. She tried it on once and said, "This isn't me." Then she shoved it in the back of the closet like a mistake she didn't want to return. But apparently it was her, just not for me. And then I heard the garage door. She was home. So I acted. The garage door's grind felt louder than usual, like it was chewing its way through the ceiling. I stood in the middle of the bedroom holding her phone, screen still lit, my reflection warped in the glass. For a split second I considered putting it back, pretending I hadn't seen anything. Just long enough to test how deep the lie went. But that instinct passed. I slipped the phone into my pocket. She came in through the mudroom like always, heels tapping, not the usual sneakers or flats. These were deliberate footsteps. She didn't call out my name. That mattered. She always called out when she got home. "You back yet? Want something from the store?" Nothing this time. I walked to the landing, waited until she was in view. She was checking herself in the hallway mirror, fluffing her hair with both hands, then fixing the clasp on a necklace. It was new. Gold, thin, sat just above her collarbone. She looked expensive. The kind of woman who knows exactly where she's going and who she's going for. When she spotted me, she jumped. Not startled, more like she was annoyed at being caught mid-transformation. "You're home," she said, trying to sound casual. "I am," I answered. "Client canceled." She nodded, lips tight, calculating. "Well, I was just heading out. Carla's birthday. That new place downtown with the rooftop bar. Remember I told you? Carla. Right? Carla had back surgery 2 weeks ago. Still recovering. Hadn't left her house in days. I knew because I brought her a casserole Tuesday. You look nice," I said. "Calm. Too calm." She smiled. Briefly. "Thanks." I leaned on the railing. "Who's driving you?" She blinked, caught. "Carla's husband is dropping us off." That way we can have drinks. Carla's husband, huh? Something flickered in her eyes, hesitation, defense, something beneath the mascara and powder. Then she straightened her spine like a soldier. Mark, if you're going to start something, don't. I'm already running late. She brushed past me. I let her. I followed, slow, steady, into the kitchen where she grabbed her purse and pretended to check something inside it. You forgot this, I said. I pulled her phone from my pocket and laid it on the counter. Her hand froze inside the bag. She didn't look at it at first. Didn't move. She stared at me, really stared, like she was reading the level of damage. Measuring the blast radius. Then she reached for the phone with fingers that were too graceful, too calm. She pressed the side button. The screen didn't light up. Dead. I had powered it down before walking downstairs. You went through my phone? She asked, voice flat, like a teacher catching a kid cheating on a spelling test. No, I replied. I didn't go through it. It was open. Lit up. You left it on the bed. It kind of went through me. She sighed. Deep. Performed. A sigh rehearsed to signal frustration rather than guilt. Mark. You don't understand, Try me. Her jaw clenched. She tapped her fingers on the granite for a beat. Then she threw her hands up like she was the one under siege. It's nothing. It's just texting. Flirting. I felt ignored for years and You booked a hotel. You met him. You wore that dress. Don't insult both of us by calling it texting. Now came the pivot. She tried to look wounded. A strange thing to watch in real time, a woman crafting pain to redirect guilt. I saw the shift in her eyes like a film reel skipping frames. I needed to feel something again, she said. You haven't touched me in months. You don't even see me anymore. You come home, crack a beer, fall asleep watching baseball, and I'm just invisible. And this is what visible looks like. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't have to. The silence following that sentence was heavier than any shouting could be. She grabbed her bag. I can't do this right now. I'm not in the mood for one of your interrogations. I stepped between her and the door. Not to stop her. Just to force her to look me in the eye when she said whatever came next. Then tell me the truth, I said. She stared at me, and this is the part I'll never forget, with contempt. Not fear. Not guilt. Not even sadness. Just this ice-cold look that said, you were never going to stop me. And then she did something I never expected. She smirked. That same smirk from the bedroom mirror. And said, if you think that phone was the only one, you're dumber than I thought. She walked past me like nothing she'd said had weight. That was when the reality clicked in. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a crisis. This was intentional. She wanted to hurt me. And still, I hadn't told her what I found in the other drawer yet. Not yet. Because what I found next would change everything. She left the house without slamming the door. That felt important. The quiet way she closed it behind her, almost tender, like she was being careful not to wake something. But whatever it was, it had already snapped awake the moment she said those words, if you think that phone was the only one. I didn't follow her. I didn't shout. I just stood there, surrounded by the aftertaste of her perfume and the cheap, acidic echo of her final insult. My kitchen felt foreign. The coffee mugs on the rack, the framed family rules signs she bought at HomeGoods, even the stupid lemon-scented candle burning next to the sink, all of it was scenery for a life I clearly didn't understand anymore. I didn't sit down. I went back upstairs. I needed to find the other phone. And here's the thing, I didn't know for sure that there was one. But when she looked me in the eye and said I was dumb for thinking her main phone was the only one, that wasn't a bluff. That wasn't panic. That was her showing her cards, face up, and daring me to stare. So I searched. It took 20 minutes, maybe more. And then I opened the drawer in her vanity. Not the top one, that's where she kept the obvious stuff, hair ties, receipts, perfume samples. I went for the one she always locked. The one she once told me held old journals from her 20s. Back when we used to trust each other. The key was taped to the underside of the drawer rail. I only found it because I was angry enough to think like her. Inside, notebooks, yes, but also a black zip-up clutch. A burner phone. Slim, dusty, powered off. I stared at it like it might explode. Like it was some cursed thing. I powered it on. It lit up instantly. 92% battery. Recent. The home screen was bland. Just 4 apps. No wallpaper. No photos. No trace of her in the usual ways. But the messages told another story. Different name. Different contact list. Names I'd never heard her say out loud. One of the top messages was saved under just a letter, M. I opened it. The most recent message was from earlier that day. M, you sure the idiot isn't home? Her, he's on a trip. Trust me. M, same hotel? Her, room 713. Key under the mat. There was a photo attached. A mirror selfie, her hand on her hip, eyes shadowed, lips painted red again. The same dress. The same necklace. She'd sent it hours before I walked in the door. I scrolled back. Weeks of messages. Plans, meetups, instructions on when to park 2 streets over, when to avoid the neighbor's dogs. She even told him the exact time I left for work every day. And this man, he wasn't the same as the one from the main phone. Different tone, different references. Different hotel. My hands were shaking now. Not with rage. Not yet. It was something colder than rage, a realization that this wasn't an affair. It was a system. A structure she had built, brick by brick, behind my back. Not once. Not with one man. But at least 2. And then the phone vibrated. New message. Room's ready. Where are you? My thumb hovered over the screen. She was already on her way. I should have left it there. Let her hang herself on her own treachery. But some part of me, primal and clear-eyed, wanted to see. I wanted to see the moment she walked in that room expecting him, expecting pleasure, and found something else entirely. So I did something I didn't think I was capable of. I grabbed my keys. I took the burner phone with me. And I drove straight to the hotel. The drive to the hotel was dead silent. No music. No air. Just the buzz of the tires chewing asphalt and the rhythm of my pulse rising in my throat. Every stoplight was a dare. Turn back. Be smart. Let it go. But I didn't. I wasn't going there for drama. I wasn't even going there for revenge, not yet. I was going because I needed to look in her eyes when she saw me instead of him. When her whole web of cheap thrills collapsed under one quiet moment. No shouting. No swinging. Just truth. The Marriott sat at the edge of downtown, wedged between a steakhouse and a parking garage. Not even the good one. This was the corporate, no-frills version, the kind that sees more secrets than a confessional booth. Room 713. 7th floor. I parked around the corner. Walked. No luggage, no disguise. Just the burner phone in my jacket and my wedding ring still burning a hole into my skin. The lobby was nearly empty. The clerk barely glanced at me as I passed. I didn't need a key. She left one for him, remember? Under the mat. Like some twisted parody of domestic life. Elevator ride took forever. Every floor ding made my chest tighten. I didn't know what I'd find up there. Just her? Both of them? Would she be dressed already? Would she be? Door opened. 7th floor. I stepped out. Room 713 was at the far end of the hallway. I walked slow, steady. No thoughts in my head, just this sharp, metallic focus. Everything was hyperclear. Carpet pattern. Buzz of the wall sconce. My own footsteps controlled. I reached the door. The key was there. Small white envelope tucked beneath the mat, just like she said. I picked it up, slipped it in, heard the soft click. Green light. I opened the door. She was inside, standing with her back to me, pouring 2 glasses of wine at the little bar table by the window. She turned when she heard the door shut, and everything about her face shattered. No scream. No gasp. Just this violent collapse of expression, lips parting, eyes narrowing, one hand still holding the bottle mid-pour. She knew instantly that something had gone wrong. She didn't even have to see the phone in my hand. She knew. She said nothing. I didn't move. I didn't sit. I just stood there with the door clicking closed behind me, sealing us in. Then she smiled. Not apologetically. Not nervously. But like I just walked into a joke she'd been waiting to tell. Well, she said, her voice calm, rich with venom. Looks like you finally grew a pair. I didn't blink. 2 phones. 2 men. And this place. How many rooms like this have there been? She took a slow sip from the wine glass she'd meant for him. Held eye contact. Drank the whole thing. I don't count, she said, setting it down. But I guess more than your golf buddies know. I felt nothing. Not rage. Not heartbreak. Just this clean cut inside me, precise and deep. She wasn't even trying to lie now. No performance. No tears. Just the truth, raw and deliberately cruel. Why? I asked. Her head tilted. Why does anyone do anything? You got boring. I got bored. I started tasting life again and didn't feel like stopping. She stepped closer. Not with shame, but with defiance. You really thought I'd just waste away next to you? Watching the same sitcom reruns while you snored with your mouth open. I was loyal, I said. She laughed. Actually laughed. You were predictable. I nodded. And you're proud of this? No, she said. But I'm not ashamed either. Then she leaned forward inches from my face. You want me to say I'm sorry? That I regret it? You won't get it. Because I don't. Silence. I pulled the burner from my coat pocket and placed it gently on the table beside her empty glass. She didn't look at it. I turned and walked out. I didn't slam the door. I didn't look back. Because this time she would have to wonder what happened next. I didn't go home. I drove. No destination. Just the road and the hum of the engine and a storm building in the far edges of my mind. But it wasn't a storm of rage, no shouting fantasies, no revenge-laced visions. It was worse. It was clarity. There's something terrifying about seeing a person you once loved, truly loved, with that raw, merciless light on them. No illusions left. No excuses to buffer the fall. Just their face, bare and honest in its contempt. And once you see it, really see it, you realize you've been living in a story only you believed in. I ended up at a 24-hour diner off the highway. The kind with cracked vinyl booths and waitresses who call everyone Han without meaning it. I sat by the window. Ordered black coffee. Didn't drink it. The ring on my finger felt like it weighed 50 pounds. I pulled it off. Not slowly. Not symbolically. Just one simple motion, like taking off a watch that doesn't work anymore. I placed it on the table next to the untouched cup and stared at it like it belonged to someone else. Because it did. That ring was part of a past that had expired long before I found those texts, long before the hotel room. A past I had been propping up with blind faith and dull routines while she was out designing her double life like it was an art project. My phone buzzed. Not the burner, that one I'd left behind, a little gift for her to explain when her other man showed up. This was my phone. Real name. Real number. Her. I didn't answer. The second buzz came 30 seconds later. Then a third. Then she tried calling. I silenced it. She texted. We need to talk. You can't just walk away like that. Please pick up. I'm sorry, okay? That last one, I'm sorry, was the first lie she told after getting caught. Not the first ever. Just the first post-collapse. I ignored her. She texted again. If you don't come back tonight, we'll have to explain things to the kids. Don't be dramatic. Dramatic. That word rattled in my skull. I had sat silent through so many things. Through her mood swings. Her sudden absences. Her cold shoulders in bed. The way she'd look at her phone and smile, then glance at me and frown. I was quiet. Steady. Predictable, her favorite insult. And now she wanted to call me dramatic for walking away from the wreckage she lit the match for? I stared out the window. A truck pulled into the lot. Two men stepped out, laughing, probably on their way to night shift or back from a long haul. Their life, whatever it was, looked real. I envied it. My phone buzzed one last time. If you want to talk like adults, I'll be home. But you better not say anything stupid to our kids. I mean it. I turned off the phone. It was that last message that told me everything I needed to know. She wasn't afraid I was hurt. She was afraid I'd ruin the story. The version of herself she had built in their eyes, the devoted mom, the patient wife, the good woman, all of it could collapse with just one conversation. And she knew it. And that gave me leverage. But I wasn't interested in playing the same game she had. I didn't want to become her. I wanted out. And I knew exactly how I'd do it. I slept in the car that night. Not because I had to. I could have gone to a friend's place, booked a hotel room of my own, hell, even slept in the office. But I didn't want walls. I didn't want a roof. I wanted distance. The kind of open, raw air that made it hard to lie to yourself. By morning I had a plan. It came together between midnight and dawn, built from little pieces of instinct and experience. You don't spend 20 years with someone and come out clueless. You know them, their tells, their triggers, the pressure points they try to hide. She might have outplayed me emotionally. Manipulated the silence. Weaponized boredom. But logistically? I had her beat. First move, I called a lawyer. No referrals. No local firm where her friends might overhear. I went through a contact from work, a guy who handled messy executive divorces in another city. Discreet. Expensive. Worth every penny. I laid it out for him in brutal detail. No sugarcoating. He listened. At the end of the call, he asked me one question: do you want justice or do you want peace? I told him the truth, both. But I'll settle for leverage. Second move, evidence. I went back to the house while she was still at work. She hadn't expected that. I saw her car wasn't there, and I knew she wouldn't risk being home after the hotel scene. She'd want space, not because she was ashamed, but because she'd need time to reshape the narrative. To plan her apology, or more likely, her defense. I took everything. Not out of anger, with surgical focus. Photos of her second phone, screen by screen. Screenshots of her text history. Copies of the hotel receipts. Yes, she used our joint card once, idiotically. I even grabbed the shared calendar where she'd marked book club on the same nights she was meeting him. The proof wasn't for court. It was for me. To burn the last of my denial to the ground. Third move, the kids. I called them. One at a time. No drama. No tears. I told them Mom and I were separating, and they didn't need to know everything yet, just that it wasn't sudden and it wasn't their fault. I said it in the calmest voice I could muster because I wanted them to hear stability. Not gossip. Not pain. Just truth wrapped in clarity. They were shocked. Of course they were. But they didn't push. And that silence, that pause between, "Oh my God," and "Are you okay?" told me they knew something had been wrong for a long time. They had seen it. Just like I had. Just like I'd ignored. Fourth move, confrontation, round 2. She got home around 6:30 p.m. I was waiting. Kitchen table. Folder in front of me. She walked in cautiously, keys jangling like nervous fingers. She didn't expect me to be there. Her mouth twisted into that fake surprised expression she always used when she got caught forgetting something. "You're here," she said. "I am." She walked over slowly, set her purse down, tried to meet my eyes, but there was a flicker, just a flicker of unease now. "I've been texting." "I know." Silence. Then she sat down across from me, folded her hands. That performative calm again. "I want to explain," she began. "You already did." "No, Mark, not like." I pushed the folder toward her. "What's this?" "Everything," I said. "Everything you built behind my back. Everything I need for the lawyer. Everything I need to walk away clean." She opened it slowly. The photos. The timelines. The phone screenshots. And then she did something new. She laughed. A short, bitter sound. "So this is your revenge? This is your big move?" "No," I said. "This is my exit." That shut her up. She looked at me like she hadn't expected that word. Exit. She thought this would become a battle. A war of screaming matches and manipulated memories. But I wasn't playing that game. "I'm filing," I said. "And I'm not asking for much. I'll give you the house. I'll take the cabin. You can keep the car. I just want out." She blinked. "You're just giving up?" "No. I'm choosing dignity over theater." She stared at me. For the first time since all this started, I saw a crack. Not regret. Not grief. But fear. Because I wasn't fighting. I wasn't begging. I wasn't trying to save it. I was done. "You won't tell them," she said quietly. "The kids. I already told them we're separating. That's all they need to know. What they find out later, that's on you." She looked away. That was the moment she realized she didn't hold the power anymore. Not because I took it, but because she spent hers on hotel rooms and burner phones and lies too fragile to stand under the weight of truth. And now the next move is mine. She didn't speak again that night. Not a word. She sat there for another 10, maybe 15 minutes, flipping through the folder in slow, deliberate motions as if trying to find some loophole, some angle where she still looked like the misunderstood protagonist. But she wasn't crying. She wasn't asking me to stay. She wasn't even trying to lie anymore. When she finally closed it, she pushed it gently back across the table. "You've been planning this." "No," I said, standing. "You've been planning this. I just finally read the blueprint." I didn't wait for her to respond. I left her there in the kitchen, surrounded by her own ruin, and went upstairs to pack. I wasn't going to stay another night under the same roof. That house had already been something else long before I knew, a stage for her acts, a costume closet where she could be two versions of herself, depending on who was home. But it would never be mine again. I packed lightly. One suitcase. A few essentials. My laptop, some clothes, documents. I took the photo of the kids from the nightstand but left the wedding picture in the drawer where she'd hidden the second phone. That felt symbolic, sure, but also clean. A closing parenthesis. Before I left, I wrote a note. Just one line. No signature. "You spent years pretending. I spent hours preparing. That's the difference." I didn't leave the note in the kitchen. I slid it into the folder right between the screenshots and the receipt from the Marriott. Let her find it when she tries to rearrange the evidence in her mind. I drove to the cabin that night, our cabin. The one by the lake. It was mine now. I hadn't been there in a while. We'd stopped going together about 3 summers ago. Too many busy weekends, too many times she'd claim allergies or say the drive was too long. Now I know she just didn't want to lose signal. I got there just after midnight. The place smelled like cedar and silence, a scent I didn't realize I missed. I unlocked the door, dropped my bag, and sat on the porch in the dark. And then I let myself feel everything. Not loudly. Not in some wild storm of yelling at the sky. Just a quiet flood of all the things I'd been holding back, disappointment, yes, but also humiliation. The kind that seeps in after the anger fades when you start replaying all the little moments you dismissed. The times you didn't press her. The instinct you silenced. The gut feeling you betrayed to keep the peace. I remembered her telling me once, during some stupid argument years ago, "You never make things difficult. It's like you want everything calm even when it shouldn't be." I had taken that as a compliment. As proof I was steady, patient. But maybe that's what made me the perfect camouflage. Maybe I was too quiet, too trusting. And maybe she needed noise to feel real, even if it meant blowing up the life we built. I sat there until the sun started to rise behind the treeline. No calls. No texts. Nothing. She had gone radio silent, probably in shock or maybe working on damage control. That was her language, reconstruction. Turning disasters into stories where she came out the misunderstood survivor. But not this time. Because here's what she didn't expect. That I would leave before she could twist it. That I'd walk out not as the hurt husband or the dramatic fool, but as the man who saw her, clearly and completely, and chose silence over spectacle. And as the sun broke the horizon, painting the lake with orange and gold, I made a decision that changed everything. I wasn't just going to leave her. I was going to rebuild, not react. And I knew exactly where I'd start. By mid-morning, the lake was still. Not a ripple. The kind of silence that makes you hear your own breathing too loud. I stood barefoot on the dock, holding a cup of coffee that had gone cold 20 minutes ago. I wasn't drinking it, just holding something warm. Something mine. That's the thing about betrayal. It burns you twice. Once when it hits, and again when you realize how much of yourself you gave away without question. But I wasn't just circling that realization anymore. I was done bleeding. I went inside and made a list. Actual pen and paper. Not some symbolic exercise, just tasks. Tangible, necessary. I wrote down everything that needed to happen. Legal, financial, logistical. Call the lawyer again. Freeze the joint accounts. Pull my name off the second mortgage she insisted we co-sign for tax reasons. Schedule a meeting with our accountant, and switch to a new one immediately. I called the lawyer again first. Told him I wanted to move quickly but cleanly. No drawn-out drama. No public bloodbath. Just precision. He understood. Told me I had leverage, especially with the digital trail and the second phone. But I told him something else that surprised even me. I didn't want to use it. Not in court. He paused. You sure? I want a quiet exit, I said. If she fights me, we go nuclear. But if she lets go, we keep it sealed. Because here's the truth, I didn't want revenge anymore. Not because she didn't deserve it, she did 10 times over, but because I didn't want her to shape what came next. Even in the form of retaliation. I didn't want my next chapter to have her fingerprints on it at all. I drove into town that afternoon. Got a prepaid phone. Called my kids again, just short check-ins. Their voices grounded me. They were confused, sure, but supportive. I told them I'd be staying at the cabin for a while, taking care of some things. They didn't ask for details, and I was grateful for that. There'd be time for that later on my terms. Then I made one more call. Not to her. To someone else. Our mutual friend, Sarah. One of those rare people who managed to stay neutral over the years, the kind who listened without taking sides. I didn't tell her everything, just enough. Enough to make it clear that Danielle and I were over and that I wouldn't be the one spinning stories to the rest of the circle. Danielle's going to talk, I said. She's going to shape a version. I'm not asking you to choose a side, but I'm asking you to recognize what she leaves out. Sarah was quiet for a moment. Then she's already started. Of course she had. She said you snapped, Sarah added gently. That you left in the middle of the night without explanation. That you've been cold for years. I smiled bitterly. Yeah, that tracks. But I wasn't angry. I'd expected it. She was predictable now. And predictable people are easy to outmaneuver. Thanks for the heads up, I said. You okay? No. But I'm getting there. After the call, I sat by the fire pit outside the cabin. Just me, the wind, and the sound of dead leaves shifting under the trees. I looked up at the house. My house now. For the first time in a long while, it felt like something solid. Something untouched by her shapeshifting. That night, I wrote an email. To her. Not to fight. Not to plead. Just to end it officially. You made your choice. You had every opportunity to stop. To tell the truth. To try to repair what you broke. You didn't. So I'm giving you this last thing, silence. Accept the terms from the lawyer. Sign what needs to be signed. After that, we are strangers. Forever. I didn't wait for a reply. I shut the laptop. Walked outside. And watched the stars over the lake like I hadn't in years, not just for beauty, but for proof that peace doesn't need anyone's permission. 3 days passed without a single word from her. No calls. No texts. No replies. Just the kind of silence that, once upon a time, would have broken me in half, would have sent me spiraling, checking my phone every 5 minutes, wondering if I'd gone too far or said the wrong thing. But now? Now it felt like quiet after a storm. The kind of silence you earn. I'd spent the last few days detoxing in every sense. No news, no social media, no shared bank accounts, no shared calendars. Just me in the cold lake, the sound of wind through pine trees, and the rising clarity of a life no longer bent around someone else's secrets. And then the lawyer called. She signed, he said. No counter. I didn't answer immediately. She didn't contest anything? I asked. Nope. Not even the cabin. No note. No comments. Just the signatures. That told me everything I needed to know. She wasn't giving up. She was moving on fast. Too fast. Which meant only one thing, she already had her next mask ready. Her next scene set. Likely already mid-performance with someone new. I thanked the lawyer. Hung up. Then sat there staring out the window, watching a squirrel scramble across the roof of the boathouse like it had secrets too. And suddenly I laughed. Not because it was funny, nothing about this was funny, but because something in me snapped loose. Like a chain falling off a door that had been locked for years. I didn't have to pretend anymore. Not for her. Not for the marriage. Not even for the kids. It was over. That night, I did something I hadn't done in maybe a decade. I opened the old wooden chest in the back room of the cabin. The one filled with junk from my 20s. I found notebooks, old Polaroids, a couple of stupid poems I wrote after college. Stuff I'd forgotten even existed. And at the very bottom, my grandfather's watch. I held it in my hands like a relic. Heavy. Worn. Still ticking. I remembered him giving it to me before my wedding, saying, "Don't lose track of time for someone who doesn't know how to keep it." I thought he meant schedules. Now I think he meant life. I put the watch on. It fit. And for the first time in what felt like years, I saw a version of myself in the mirror that didn't look like he was apologizing for existing. I slept better that night than I had in months. No nightmares. No dreams either. Just rest. Like my body finally believed I wasn't going to drag it back into that house, that lie, that role. The next morning, I took the ring out of my coat pocket. I hadn't looked at it since the diner. It sat there in my palm, a small, expensive monument to 20 years of good intentions crushed by selfishness. It didn't even look like mine anymore. Just a band of metal that once meant forever and now meant finally over. I didn't throw it in the lake. That would have been too dramatic, something she might have done just for effect. Instead, I slid it into a glass jar. Screwed the lid tight. Wrote the date on a piece of tape. Set it on the highest shelf of the cabin. Not to remember her, but to remember what it cost me to forget myself for 2 decades. I thought the end would feel like collapse. I expected wreckage. Dust. Emptiness. That cliché image of a man staring at blank walls wondering who he is without her. But what I got instead was something quieter. Stranger. Sharper. I got space. Real, terrifying, beautiful space. It's funny, when you've lived years in someone else's emotional shadow, your first instinct after freedom is guilt. Guilt for feeling peace. Guilt for not aching every second. Guilt for laughing at a dumb video or feeling good about a meal you cooked for one. But guilt doesn't last long when you're finally breathing air you didn't have to earn. I stayed at the cabin another month. I fixed things, literal, physical things. The front porch light that flickered for years. The screen door she always said was too old to bother replacing. I replaced it. Not because it needed to be done, but because I finally wanted to fix something that stayed fixed. I started cooking again. Not just meals, food. I bought ingredients instead of pre-packed excuses. I found myself remembering how much I used to enjoy it. Before she started picking at every bite, claiming it was too spicy, too bland, too much. I found myself again in that silence. But silence doesn't mean isolation. A few weeks in, I reconnected with people I'd let drift. Old friends. My brother. Even a couple coworkers I used to avoid outside office hours because I had to get home. Turns out they'd all noticed it, the dull version of me that used to show up, nod along, and disappear. They just didn't know how to name it. Now they were hearing a voice I hadn't used in years. My own. As for her, Danielle, or whatever name she's using for herself now, I haven't spoken to her since that email. Haven't needed to. She got what she wanted, distance, freedom, no husband slowing her down with loyalty. And I got what I deserved, a fresh start unchained from a story she wrote without my consent. The kids came to visit. They walked in cautiously like the walls might still hold tension. But when they saw me smile, really smile, something shifted. My daughter hugged me and whispered, "You look lighter." My son didn't say anything. He just sat next to me on the dock that evening, feet in the water, and didn't reach for his phone once. I didn't tell them the details. Not yet. I will someday. When they ask. When they're old enough to understand that betrayal doesn't always come with shouting or broken dishes. Sometimes it wears a smile and speaks in calm tones while it builds another life behind your back. But I'll let them learn that on their own terms. As for me, I'm not chasing closure. I'm not writing angry letters or waiting for her to apologize. I don't need her confession because I already have the truth. And the truth is more than enough. After 20 years of marriage, I found my wife getting ready seductively for another man. So I acted. Not with violence. Not with vengeance. But with finality. And now I live in a place where no lies linger in the corners. Where the only sound I hear at night is the wind and sometimes laughter, mine, returning like an old friend who finally found his way back. If you're in it, if you're doubting yourself, questioning your instincts, folding red flags into neat little squares, let me tell you this. The moment you stop shrinking to fit someone else's version of love, the real world begins. And it's a hell of a lot better than anything you'll find hiding in their hotel rooms.